The Bloody Podcassacre with Zac Walters and Kennedy Catherine.
But when I'm feeling like good in the mornings, or like, well, when I want to feel good, I will buy a blueberry bagel and get strawberry cream cheese.
There's such a thing as strawberry cream cheese by Philadelphia?
Yep. And
Wow.
it's like a nice light pink, and so that's a good combination. And it'd be good with even just like some like raspberries on top, like a real raspberry, or even like a raspberry jam, half raspberry jam, half cream cheese. Anyways, if you need any more breakfast recommendations, please welcome to the
Bloody Podcassacre. Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
And I feel like my good friends would be able to answer this, so this is just a quick friendship test. I don't anticipate you being able to answer this.
Okay.
What do you think I eat for a breakfast cereal if I eat cereal?
First thing came to mind was Cocoa Puffs.
Oh, interesting.
But like, that's like nobody I know eats that.
I
couldn't eat,
not
like,
one single person.
I don't even know if I've had Cocoa Puffs.
I don't think I have.
Maybe Nesquik would be the closest thing.
Right.
I feel like you're a Chex kind of girl.
Close. Raisin Bran.
Ugh.
I know, I'm sorry.
Ew.
That or I really love a Honey Bunches of Oats.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Honey Bunches of Oats. Shreddies is actually my favorite cereal of all time.
Shreddies is pretty banging.
Because it's so dense, and when the milk goes into it, it just sits on the bottom. And then it gets soggy, and I'm like, I love it.
At that point, I'm tipping into not loving it so much, but I see what you're saying. I had Honey Nut Cheerios. Why did I have to say the whole name?
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, Honey Nut Cheerios. Oh my God. A treat.
What? Also, just like it's a good snacking cereal.
It is a good snacky snack.
We're getting too excited about breakfast cereal.
Here's the real tea on cereal.
Are you a drink your milk kind of gal or pour it down the sink kind of gal?
Neither. I will.
Just let it. You're like, neither. I actually just leave it out and then hope that it molds, and then I throw it out.
I put the bowl outside. I let the raccoons take it. No, I always add a little bit more cereal and then finish it with cereal. Unless it's something that leaves... Such a stupid conversation.
We're both so serious about it, though.
Like, cereal is such a divisive topic. If it's something that really leaves a strong flavor, say if I treat myself to a Fruit Loops on a Thursday, delicious. I'll drink that milk any day of the week.
It's literally sugar milk.
It is. Anyways, welcome to the Bloody Podcassacre. We already said that, but we went on a tangent.
About breakfast cereal.
Yeah.
I bought 2 boxes yesterday.
What did you buy?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes, also very good.
Yeah, they're the 2 cheapest cereals that aren't the healthy options.
Right. I do love a Corn Pops, too.
Corn Pops is great. Do you know who else loves Corn Pops?
Who?
Charlie.
Oh, the cat, by the way. Yeah.
Who is digging up a storm right now.
In his litter, if you cannot hear. You said you had a good opener?
Yeah, but I'm Zac Walters.
And I'm Kennedy Catherine.
I was like, you know what would be interesting kind of to start off every week, even though it might not have substantial stuff every week.
Okay.
I feel like this week might have a lot. But I want to tell you about some news in the horror genre.
Fantastic.
About upcoming movies.
I love news.
That is coming out.
Tell me everything.
I have a couple,
okay,
which is interesting. So the first one is called Cruel Summer. It's a TV show. And I don't know if it's based on like the 2015 movie that came out, but it's produced by Jessica Biel. Interesting.
Did she not also produce The Sinner?
Yes, but she was also in it.
I've never seen it.
I haven't either, but I know she was in the first season for sure.
Interesting.
But yeah, so she's producing this like thriller TV series, but it's on Freeform, which is like the new CW / ABC Family channel.
I know, that's where they had the Fosters on there, which I begrudgingly watched because it had lesbian moms.
It's all now on Disney Plus.
The Fosters is? I will not rewatch it, but thank you for that notification.
I watched the first like 3 seasons of that show, and I was like, why am I still here? So this series premieres on April 20th. And it follows a small Texas girl who is a popular teen. Her name's Kate, and she's abducted. I did not like how I said that at all.
A small Texas girl? Is she the tiniest girl in Texas?
Yeah, she's teeny. And a seemingly unrelated girl, Jeanette, goes from being a sweet, awkward outlier to the most popular girl in town. By 1995, it takes place over 3 years, 3 summers.
But in the 90s.
Yeah, so it's 93, 94, 95.
Great years.
And Jeanette goes from being the most popular girl to the most despised person in America.
That's usually how it goes. In America.
Yeah.
All of America.
Yeah. So each episode is supposed to be told from either Jeanette or Kate's point of view.
Okay.
And so it's supposed to like conflict the viewer to know where your loyalties lie.
Interesting. And who is the target demographic?
I'm assuming teens, but I probably will give it a try. I didn't watch the trailer, but I was just... The plot itself seems good because if it's taking place over 3 summers, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
I'm going to watch the trailer later.
Next that I saw is there's a movie on Netflix called Red Dot. It came out February 11th. It's a Swedish thriller, but apparently, like, while I was Googling it, like, it's gotten a lot of, like, really, like, good buzz about it.
Okay.
It is about this young couple who is headed up for a romantic hiking trip in the mountains, but then are being hunted by, like, a red dot, as in on a gun.
Oh.
And so it turns into, like, a horror-filled nightmare situation. But yeah, apparently it has, like, a lot of, like, really good plot twists and turns. The characters are apparently, like, really easy to connect with.
And did you say that it was Swedish?
Yes, it's a Swedish thriller. Apparently you think one thing's happening and then it changes.
We love a plot twist.
Yes.
Just on that note of... It's a series or a film? Sorry.
That one's a film on Netflix.
Another foreign film that I just watched that I thought was really good. It was very campy. It was pretty silly, but it was called All My Friends Are Dead. It's on Netflix. It's a Polish horror movie. 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah, I feel like I saw it. I think someone was talking about it on Twitter. Maybe I saw it on like a letterboxed.
Like I said, very campy, very silly. Don't go into it expecting any sort of...
concrete.
No, like intelligent... twisty-turny film, but it was a good laugh, and oh my goodness, it was hysterical. The translations, that's genuinely why we started watching it, because it's dubbed over in English, and then it also has subtitles, and they are so wildly wrong in comparison to what they've dubbed over in English. That was why I was watching it, because I was like, I need to see how this develops, because this is so funny. And then by the end, I was like, turns out I actually really like this movie.
I'll probably give it a watch or add it to my list at least.
It's fun.
I have a couple more, which are just quick. Well, they don't have to be quick.
Baby, this is your podcast. You do what you want to do.
There's a couple that I'm excited for that they're talking about making. The first one is they're doing a Cloverfield reboot. So they're actually penning a sequel to the first one, like a direct sequel of like what happened in the aftermath after the monster came and attacked New York.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for that. But it's not supposed to be like the shaky found footage, but that J.J. Abrams is coming back to help produce it.
Oh, that's good. That gives me some faith. But
because did you ever watch the 2 like spin-offs that kind of came from it?
I don't think so.
So there's 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was very good.
I did watch it and I did like it.
If Cloverfield is one point and there's like a direct linear thing to it, it's like this is like a separate.
Okay.
And I really liked it, the first Cloverfield.
You did really like it? Yeah.
Well, it was one of like the first, when I was first starting to get into scary movies, it was the first one that I watched alone when it came out in 2008.
I wonder what the first horror movie that I watched alone was. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah. And I remember being so like scared. I remember, well, one, the shaky cam was a lot. I was like, what is happening? But there was these like little bugs that come off of the main monster and they like attack Lizzie Kaplan in the subway, and those bugs terrified me.
God, I love Lizzie Kaplan.
Me too.
What a stunning human being. Not to bring it down to that. She's also very talented. But...
Yes. So excited for that. There is also a new Darren Aronofsky. Is that how you say his name? Or is it Aronofsky?
You did this last time. It's
Aronofsky.
I know.
And Jared Leto movie being written. And it's supposed to be based off a collection of 7 Japanese short stories called Dark Water, which...
That's the movie. Dark Water kind of came back a little bit into consciousness because of the Elisa Lam?
That sounds right.
Yeah, Elisa Lam documentary on Netflix. I can't remember what it's called. I watched it. It was quite good. But they talk a lot about how... Or there's this episode of that series where they're talking about the movie Dark Water, which is a Jennifer Connelly horror film from the earlier 2000s, and how that movie and Elisa Lam's death were very similar. And they were conspiracy theorists were trying to draw a comparison, saying like, ooh, maybe there was somebody who was trying to do a copycat thing. And Dark Water, the American film, is based off of a Japanese story. So I wonder if it's the same thing.
Interesting also that Jennifer Connelly is in that movie, and now Jared Leto and Darren are in this version because they all work together on Requiem for a Dream.
I was like, where are you going with this? Oh yeah, that is interesting.
Playing 6 Degrees of Separation in my head.
Yeah, Dark Water is a good movie though. It's on Shudder. You should watch it.
But yeah, this one, it says it'll follow the efforts of a fishing boat who responds to a distress call from an abandoned yacht and discovers a ghost ship.
Oh, I love a ghost ship. Wow, I love a ghost ship. This is so exciting.
I don't know when that's supposed to come out. I think they're just writing it right now. But have you ever watched Ghost Ship?
No.
The movie?
No.
Oh my gosh. I have only seen clips from it. We should maybe watch it just as like for ourselves.
Just as friends.
Yes. But there's this scene where there's like a bunch of guests standing on like the deck of the boat in like some sort of formal, a dance, something, and a wire tightens on the end. I think it was just passing through on Twitter.
You sent me the video of this.
Yes, and it cuts them all in half, and they're all just standing there in shock because they're like, one, our bodies are going to literally fall apart any second. Wow.
And then the top half of their bodies slide off.
Yes.
So fun.
Very Final Destination.
Yes, very Final Destination.
Which I love those movies.
So do I.
They're not great.
They instilled a lot of irrational fears in me, though.
Yeah, the tanning beds. Yep, that's the one. Never have I ever been in a tanning bed. And because of that reason.
Tires flying off of race cars.
Yes, big scare.
Big fear for someone who
doesn't
literally
go.
has never been to a racetrack. That's untrue. I have been to a racetrack, but
I have not.
Not spending a lot of time
but
there.
Roller coasters,
I hate
terrifying.
roller coasters as
Planes, driving behind semis with wood on it, or any sort of material that looks like it's not strapped in.
I can't remember why, because I don't know that there's a scene directly where this happens. Chandeliers. Big light fixtures scare the shit out of me.
That happens a lot in scary movies, though, where like a chandelier will fall or like close to hitting the ground.
I do not want to be under a large light fixture at any point. No, thank you. No, thanks.
But Ghost Ship, we should revisit that or visit it in general. One that's very exciting because we have talked about it on this podcast.
Okay.
They are doing a Paranormal Activity reboot.
Oh, God. Why?
It's coming out March 4th, 2022.
Oh, I think I actually mentioned this in the podcast.
Did you?
I think I did.
Oh, well, I did not. I've grazed over it in my mind.
It's information I immediately released from my brain, apparently.
But yeah, apparently it's supposed to be an unexpected retooling that adheres to the series of the found footage style, but it's going to be different.
So it's not going to be Katie's story anymore, because that's what I'm fucking tired of.
Katie and Mika can get wrecked.
I mean, Mika was really lost after that first film anyways, but still.
Sorry, one thing that's wild is it has grossed $890.3 million worldwide, the series. So we can talk shit all we want about Paranormal Activity, but they have the money.
We can talk shit about anything we want, and all of these people are going to be wildly more successful and rich than both of us combined.
You're right.
So, anyways, it's good to just have a reality check every once in a while.
Yeah.
Remind ourselves that we are humble civilians.
I have 2 more, but I feel like we've been going on too long about new stuff. I'm going to do 1 more.
Go.
I'm just going to do them both. Fuck it. First one, they're writing a sequel for District 9. Which is not a scary movie. It was more like a science fiction movie.
Is that not a cartoon?
No.
Okay.
And then the last one is they're doing a new Stephen King series.
No. Okay, what is it?
It's based off of a collection of short stories called Skeleton Crew, but it's specifically on the one called The Jaunt, and it's from 1985. It says, The Jaunt is a nasty little story about the dangers of time travel in the 24th century.
I don't think I know that one.
I don't either. If it's a short story...
I have a book of... But it's Bizarre of Broken Dreams. It's not...
But yeah, it's the guy who produced and wrote Fear of Walking Dead and Sons of Anarchy has joined up to work on it.
Love Sons of Anarchy.
And also has worked on Ozark and The Outsider.
Oh my God. I love all of those things.
So...
I have no idea what Outsider is. I don't know why I said that, but...
It's a Stephen King. It's a Stephen King novel, and it's a series on HBO. Patrick Bateman. Is that his name?
Patrick Bateman. That's a character from American Psycho, isn't it?
No, that's Norman Bates.
No, that's Psycho. Oh. American Psycho. Yeah, Patrick Bateman is American Psycho.
Jason Bateman.
That he's in Ozark.
Yes, he is in The Outsider. Anyways, it was just a miniseries, The Outsider.
Oh, okay.
My mom loved the book, but she started the series. I started with her when I was home for Christmas, and she was like, eh.
Do you like how I was like, couldn't be Jason Bateman, he's in Ozark, as if
that's their only thing.
He actually cannot do multiple projects.
But anyways, I wanted to end on a Stephen King note because it's a nice, perfect transition to what we're talking about this week.
Which is?
Carrie. That felt so like, we haven't done a lot of movies where it's one title. Mother was. When I just said
word.
Carrie, it was just like, it felt very weird coming out of my mouth.
Okay, we've done Mother, Midsommar, Hereditary.
Midsommar has not come out yet. Yes, it has.
But it'll be out by the time we do this.
You're right.
But yeah, I see your point. I see your point. We are doing the 1976 original.
The original version with a great cast, really.
Yeah.
Unexpected cast. Remember John Travolta?
John Travolta, I think this was his first film, though.
Really? I mean, it kind of makes sense.
He actually had, at the time, a single on the radio that was doing very well. That's why they cast him. Because
was it like rock and roll, I'm assuming?
I'm not entirely sure. I didn't really know that he had a musical background. John Travolta is one of those people that I accept into my circle, but that I know nearly nothing about.
Well, I mean, remember, he was in Grease.
He was in Grease.
He did sing. He was
married to the late, great Kelly Preston, who we know. I have the largest crush on, Cat in the Hat.
Remember when you asked her to call you and I said, she's dead.
R.I.P. Kelly Preston.
I feel like I have a weird relationship with Carrie. Like, as in, like...
The person?
No, like, the movie. Like, part of me really loves the story and, like, the concept of it, but I find that every iteration of it is very lackluster.
I know what you're saying. We kind of talked about this morning, that... Yeah, I love the concept of it. There's a lot of details around it that I really enjoy. I would like to read the novel.
I also would like to read it.
Yeah, and it's not very long.
No, I Googled it earlier. It's 199 pages, so it's a quick read.
Yeah, and I love Stephen King's work, but every time I watch it, I am a little surprised by the slowness of it, perhaps. Yeah.
Because when I told you, I always like to watch the movie the morning of when we record the podcast, or even the night before, just so it's kind of fresh in my mind when I'm talking about it. But it's like the first hour of the film is very slow. Like, until the peak, like the climax of the movie, where it's like, obviously Carrie gets the blood dropped on her, not a lot happens. It just really is, it's character building for Carrie and her mother, and as well as everybody who has some sort of bone to pick with Carrie.
Which is literally everybody.
Yes, everybody but the teacher. Or the guidance counselor. I don't know. Same thing.
She's a teacher. The teacher.
But I really want Carrie to be, like, dark and grittier.
But the point of her is that she's not. Or do you mean the movie?
The movie itself. Okay. Like, because Carrie, I don't picture Carrie's character ever being dark and gritty, because that's not what I think. But, like, that's why I think I like the 2013 version, because it seems so much more dark.
An interesting thing that kind of goes alongside that is that Piper Laurie, who plays Margaret White, the mother, and a good portion of the cast who plays the teenagers outside of Sissy Spacek, who plays Carrie, thought that they were making a black comedy. A lot of people thought this was supposed to be like a satire, and so they played it that way.
Interesting.
And they were very surprised when they saw the film, and it wasn't that. Piper Laurie still considers it a black comedy, which I think is kind of funny. Because I think it is shot and written in such a way that it is not inherently a dark film. But also, I find it really sad.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, it is. It is a sad story of, like, a girl being bullied just for trying to coexist with other people. Yeah, it is. There is some things that are very reminiscent of Saint Maud, where she is this sort of, even if Carrie herself is not a religious fanatic, she is sort of like a religious outcast. So hated by people for no reason. Teens are so ruthless. Like, actually, the worst things in the world are teenagers. I know. I was reading, actually, on Letterboxd. This guy made a really great review because he did his dissertation on Carrie, actually, the original. And mostly he did it on, I want to say it was sexuality. Yeah, gender and sexuality in Carrie. And there's not much to it, but that's what he did his dissertation on. It's very interesting because the original book is, like, very much like a feminism-based book, but the movie versions are never that because they're always, like, washed away out of it. Yeah, Stephen King has even said of The Shining that he disliked it because it was very misogynistic. I had a line about what Stephen King said about that. Hold on. About this movie? Yeah. So when he wrote the book in 1973, he said that Carrie is largely about how women find their channels of power and what men fear about women and women's sexuality, which is only to say that he was fully aware of the women's liberation implied for him and others of his sex. Carrie's a woman feeling insecure of her powers for the first time and using her wild talent to pull down the whole rotten society. But then in a 90s version, collector's edition of the book, by Tabitha King, it was supposed to be, the girls were supposed to metaphorically stone her with menstrual hygiene products. because they were just getting to grips with what it meant to be a woman in the 1970s. And that they saw themselves in her, but that they wanted to annihilate her because they didn't want that on themselves.
They hate her so fiercely for being a naive character. There's something about it where they're just so resentful of her not understanding.
Well, it's also interesting because the way that the other teenage girls and guys see Carrie is that she's this, like, literally a child.
Yes.
In which she's literally the same age as all of them. But
her maturity level is different because she's been so sheltered from the world. And we all knew kids like that growing up whose parents were not leading with honesty, or they were just very religious and their worldview was inherently different. Yeah, she's one of those people. She's also a victim of abuse at the hands of her mother. So she's moving through the world in a very different way.
But just kind of to, like, go back to Stephen King saying, and, like, Tabitha King, the idea was mostly to have women to have the power to change society from the ground up.
In what way?
Like, there's a quote in the book that says, first the blood, then the power, which describes that superpowers only manifest in females, which in this story is showing that only, like, the strong people are females. The telekinetic power that Carrie gets is some sort of, like, symbolism for having a stronger will.
I see what you're saying. Something about that was just...
I kind of went a long way around it. I started at one point and then was like, we'll circle all the way back around. According to the book, the 2013 version is a little bit closer to the actual story bits of it.
Okay.
Like the endings or, like, the themes.
A part of their limitations to telling the story properly in the 1976 version was budget. In that the book ends with Carrie burning down the town, and they couldn't do that because they didn't have the money for it. The budget for this movie was quite small. It was $1.8 million. They box office totaled $33.8 million. So they made their budget back over 18 times, which is pretty great. So yeah, there's a couple of changes that the 2013 film would have gotten right that the 1976 version, it just wasn't feasible.
Makes sense. Did you ever watch the 2002 version?
No,
I
did not.
The TV movie?
No.
I didn't either.
TV movies I don't trust.
It did not look good from the clips I've seen.
Is there anybody in it?
Yes. The only notable person is Patricia Clarkson, plays the mother.
What? Patricia Clarkson is one of the greatest loves of my life, and now I will immediately watch this. She would be a great Margaret White. God, she's a terrifying mother.
Very. Like, her characters as a mother are... All I can think of as sharp objects right now.
Which, you know, if you're looking for some Patricia Clarkson facts, she's never married nor had children. She's an independent woman.
Right.
As is her right.
I did really like Julianne Moore, though, as the mother. Even though it was a little watered down from what I think Margaret could be and is. I did like her portrayal of it in the new version. I
was not able to watch the new version this time around. I just couldn't find it. But
have you seen it, though? Yes.
And am I remembering correctly? Is Julianne Moore made to look really unattractive in that movie?
Yes.
Okay.
She looks very old, though, is what
I'm
it
gonna
is.
Google a photo.
She has dark hair in that movie, which is interesting. And it's like a long middle part.
Oh, I was remembering her wrong. Yeah, she looks pretty reminiscent of her usual self, just like not as made up.
Yeah.
Should we go through the plot before we discuss much further?
Let's do it.
Okay. Shy 16-year-old Carrie White, who lives with her fanatically religious mother Margaret, is unpopular at school and often bullied. When Carrie experiences her first period in the school shower, she panics because her mother never told her this was coming. Carrie's classmates humiliate her by throwing tampons at her, chanting, "Plug it up," until the gym teacher, Miss Collins, intervenes and comforts her. After arriving home, Margaret tells Carrie that her menstruation was caused by sin and locks Carrie in an altar-like prayer closet to pray for forgiveness. At school, Miss Collins reprimands Carrie's tormentors and punishes them with a week-long after-school detention. She threatens that those who skip will be suspended for 3 days and barred from the upcoming prom. Carrie's longtime bully, the wealthy and popular Chris, walks out. Plotting vengeance against Carrie, Chris and her boyfriend Billy break into a local farm and kill pigs to drain their blood into a bucket, planning to place them above the school stage during prom. They plan to rig the prom queen election in Carrie's favor to get her on the stage. Meanwhile, Sue, a classmate who actually has deep remorse for Carrie, asks her handsome and popular boyfriend Tommy to invite Carrie to the prom. Carrie thinks the proposition is a prank, but he insists he's genuine and she accepts after being consoled by Miss Collins. At this same time, Carrie begins to discover that she has the power of telekinesis, with lights and items shattering when she feels upset. In spite of her mother, Margaret's protests, Carrie gets ready for the prom. Margaret sees Carrie's telekinetic powers as they argue over whether or not Carrie will actually go, and she denounces her as a witch after Carrie leaves with Tommy. During the prom, where Carrie and Tommy are having a nice time together, the conspirators switch the ballots to ensure that Carrie wins the prom queen title. As Carrie stands on stage with Tommy, finally feeling accepted by her peers, the rope attached to the bucket of pig blood is pulled and douses her in blood. The empty bucket hits Tommy in the head, knocking him unconscious. The crowd is left shocked and speechless. Carrie hallucinates that everyone is mocking her, and in a sudden fit of rage, uses her telekinesis to seal the exits from the gym and set it on fire, killing most of the attendees. Sue survives, having been thrown out of the prom by Miss Collins earlier, but watches as the students and teachers die. As Carrie walks home, the pranksters attempt to run her over, but Carrie senses their presence and causes their car to explode. After Carrie scrubs herself clean at home, Margaret reveals that Carrie was conceived during rape committed by her drunken husband, an act she shamefully admits that she enjoyed. Margaret comforts Carrie and then stabs her in the back with a kitchen knife and chases her through the house. Carrie levitates several sharp objects and sends them flying toward Margaret, crucifying her. She then destroys the house and perishes as a result. Sometime later, Sue, the only survivor of the prom, struggles to deal with the trauma she's experienced. She has a nightmare in which she lays flowers on the charred remains of Carrie's home, with a for sale sign vandalized in red paint with the phrase, "Carrie White burns in hell." Suddenly, Carrie's bloody arm reaches from beneath the rubble and grabs Sue's forearm. Sue wakes up screaming, and her mother comforts her.
I didn't think it was it a dream?
Yeah, it was a dream. What do you think, she wakes up from? Reality?
No, I knew it was a dream, but I thought it was more like she was dreaming about the event that had happened to her, so it was more like a nightmare, and that she keeps reliving this moment.
No, it was definitely a dream.
Cool. Well, kind of that theory.
Yeah. There's a lot that we want to talk about, but just while we're on that note, kind of interesting. Sissy Spacek, I guess, is like extremely...
Yes, I saw this.
Yeah, she's all about continuity and very method, and she insisted that it was her. So she was put in a coffin and buried underground as per her own request, so that when the arm shoots up, it is actually her.
Come on.
And she also slept in the pig's blood, which I kind of thought was an old wives' tale. Like, I kind of thought that maybe wasn't true, but it is true that she elected to sleep in her bloody clothes for 3 days when she was doused in the pig's blood.
Also, when they put her in the ground, they, did that and then set up the cameras. Like, she was in there for a while.
Did you read about it?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Like, they put her in the ground and put, all of the rocks and the soil and stuff on top, and then they set up the shot.
Why? Why didn't they set up the shot first?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, good God.
She's dead, and they're like, okay, camera's rolling.
So.
Carrie.
Let's talk about our favorite scenes.
First, I just want to say, this really, when you think about it, is just like a coming-of-age story.
Oh, really? Truly.
It's just a drama that, with a girl with superpowers.
It's just, this is what all young girls go through.
Yeah.
We get our periods. We have telekinesis for a year. Mm-hmm. Then we cycle through to the next phase of adulthood.
Right. And you pass it on to somebody else who...
Yes. Then the passing of the blood, if you will.
Yes. First blood, then power. Mm-hmm. Then passing it on. Right. When you really think about it and break it down, it's not a horror film. It is.
I was like, I disagree with that.
But, I don't think it was...
I wonder if it was scary for its time. Because even the remake, I wouldn't say is really all that scary. God, we can have this conversation 75 times. Scary versus horror. But it's very sad.
It's scary due to the fact that, as being a teenager, you've been in those positions where people put you down for no reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but growing up is scary. And having your peers constantly, jab at you. That's more, the true horror of it. And, having, good relationships with your parents and having, that's, I think, more the horror of this. And that people are awful versus it being, there is a demon.
Yes.
It is, scary, but not in the, typical, this is a scary movie sense.
Right.
Which is why I think it's more of a drama. Do you know what's interesting? So, I don't think that any versions of the Carrie, looking at them, were what Stephen King wrote.
I can't say because I haven't read the novel.
So, this is what the character description is for Carrie. Carrie is supposed to be a disgusting character physically, She's supposed to be dirty, overweight, sweaty, zitty, and a variety of things that the mean inner 14-year-old everyone views in their mind in an unsympathetic light. I think that each iteration of Carrie has been Hollywood standard pretty.
Yes. I don't know that Sissy Spacek qualifies as Hollywood standard beautiful, because I would say that criticism of her as an actress is that she's not. Because she definitely doesn't fit the bill for a Hollywood leading lady. However, she is I find her to be a beautiful person. She has a very ethereal feeling to her.
Like, her hair, her feet, like, everything about her is very gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. And when she gets ready for the prom at the end, I was kind of startled. I was like, oh, she looks stunning. Here's an interesting thing. So when they held the casting, Brian De Palma and George Lucas held joint auditions.
Brian De Palma is the director of the film.
They held a joint audition for Carrie and then for Princess Leia. And Sissy Spacek, her husband, was the art director, and he begged Brian De Palma to see her. And for her audition, she put Vaseline in her hair. She didn't wash her face. She wore this sailor's dress that her mom had made her, that she took the hem out of so that it would be looser and more childlike. And she also didn't brush her teeth or anything. That's how she kind of got the role, is by fitting that bill. But then in the movie, at no point did I find her physically repulsive at all.
No. And to go off of that, to prepare for the role, she deliberately isolated herself from the rest of her cast members. It says she would put herself in her trailer, which was adorned with a slew of religious regalia, including Gustave Doré's illustrated Bible, and also examined the body language of those stoned to death for their sins. What is it about actors going too far to create a character?
I don't know that you would... I don't know if she went too far. Like, I think that people...
Putting yourself into your trailer for isolation...
Right. I mean, that also depends on who you are as a person, because filming only lasts a certain amount of time, and a lot of people are not there to make friends. So if she wanted to isolate herself just for the purposes of staying in character, that to me is not entirely extreme. I think we move into the extreme when people use method acting as an excuse for abusive or upsetting behavior. I wouldn't say that she necessarily fits that bill. I also find it interesting that, like, her, and I think Piper Laurie as well, were studying the Bible, but Margaret White's character is not following any real religion.
No. Well, because even, like, the crucifix, it was very interesting in watching, like, I watched a side-by-side of all three iterations of the film. What I really liked is, so Carrie gets put into a closet when she's misbehaving, in which has a bunch of religious regalia all over the place. And you're right, there's no specific, like, Christian...
Catholic.
Yes,
yeah.
Jewish, Judaism.
Yeah.
There's nothing specific stating what they follow.
And she does mention things that I know for a fact are not in the King James Bible.
The religious figure that would presumably be Jesus that is crucified, that is hanging there, in the original is very reminiscent of her mother, and it's kind of foreshadowing it. Like, it has this, like, long, billowing, curly hair, and in the position, and it's obviously, you know. But it's not, I would say, the white version, the white people's version of Jesus Christ. But in the 2013 version, it is.
Yes.
It very much is, like, that is Jesus Christ.
Well, I think that whatever they subscribe to is, like, a Jesus, God figure, but it's just not rooted in any real religion.
It was really cool to see that. I thought it looked like the mother.
Right. I thought this was a little bit interesting that some of the people who auditioned for the role of Carrie were Linda Blair, who was Reagan in
The Exorcist.
Thank you. Jill Clayburgh, who is, for everybody who might not know, she plays Kristen Wiig's mom in Bridesmaids. She has now since passed. She's also the mother of Lily Rabe, who's in American Horror Story.
What else is she in?
Jill Clayburgh. She was in a lot of stuff in the 80s and the 90s. She's not necessarily somebody that you would know from the 2000s.
Yeah, I was going to say, her name doesn't ring a bell at all.
She passed away while they were making Bridesmaids, so she's been gone for quite some time. Farrah Fawcett also went up for the role, and Melanie Griffith. And also, I feel like Sissy Spacek would be the most, outside of maybe Linda Blair, the most less conventionally attractive option. That's such a shitty thing to say, but she would be one of the easier ones to make into, like, a meek, under the radar person.
Two other people who also auditioned, Carrie Fisher.
Love that.
Which makes sense when they were also auditioning for...
Did you see her quote about this?
No, I don't think I did. And also Glenn Close.
Oh, Glenn Close.
But no cigar.
Glenn Close probably would have been a little too old at the time.
Would she have been?
Probably.
How old is she now?
I'm not sure. You know, even if Glenn Close wasn't too old at the time, Glenn Close has always kind of had old face. Like, she's kind of an ageless-looking woman.
She would have been 28.
Yeah, and I mean, Sissy Spacek was 25, 26, so that's not crazy. So I guess there was this long-standing rumor that Carrie Fisher was rejected from playing Carrie because she refused to work nude. And then in an interview, she once said, "Not only do I love being nude, but I would have been nude then." Anyway, that is total bullshit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, wouldn't it have been interesting for Carrie to play Carrie? Should we get into our favorite scenes?
Yes.
The classic climax prom scene. Mm-hmm. As we know, and Kennedy told us, we see Carrie be nominated and rigged to win prom queen along with Tommy White. Is not his name. They are now married.
He has taken her last name.
Yes, as he should. But Carrie and Tommy are rigged to win prom king and queen at the school formal. And...
which Tommy's not in on.
No. Great guy, honestly.
He is so cute. I was in love with him by the end of the movie.
Most times I would be like, who is this woman with them? Because his hair was so gorgeous.
It's so, so gorgeous.
I have some quirks with him, though. How the hell did he die from a bucket hitting his head with that helmet hair? You tell me that.
I don't think he died. He was knocked unconscious, and then I think he died in the fire. But who's to say? Okay.
I think he died from that bucket.
Okay. Then he was a weak man.
Strong heart. We have the prom dress getting covered in pig's blood and the psycho telekinetic actions. I think the reason that I like this part so much is because you know it's coming for so long and it builds such a tension while watching it and you're like, oh my God. Like, it's like so like, I wanted to just be like, drop the pig's blood already because it's like everything is so happy. And right before the pig blood drops, if you stop the movie there, happy ending.
Truly.
It is a completely different movie if it stops there.
And it kind of lulls you into thinking for a second that it's going to be because Tommy and Carrie are having a legitimate nice time.
Yeah.
I think he actually liked her.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not like romantically, but like...
he was definitely like, oh, Carrie White, sorry about everything that's happened to you because you were quite a nice young lady.
Genuinely, if you ended the movie there, it'd be like, that's a whole separate story. Mm-hmm. With like not a lot of substance. It
could have been a nice Cinderella story.
I wonder if there was ever versions of the movie where they just stopped it there on TV.
Not Stephen King. No.
But yeah, it's this, you know it's coming and it's so, today at least, it's so referential in so many things. Mm-hmm. But like, I think that scene works really well with how they build it up with the music and it's so like calming. And I love the slow motion, even though it did get a little tiresome towards the point where the gym teacher is dragging, I can't remember her name, the girlfriend of Tommy.
Sue.
Yes, dragging her away. That's the point where I was like, all right, let's drop the pig blood.
The one thing that isn't really mentioned in the plot synopsis for those who have not seen is that Sue knows Tommy's going to the prom with Carrie. She's orchestrated this whole thing. So she didn't go because you had to go as couples, which is this bullshit.
Weird thing, yeah.
1976. And she goes to the prom and she happens to see the setup of the pig's blood and she runs in to try to stop it. But obviously the gym teacher doesn't know. All she knows is that this girl's boyfriend is on stage with someone else.
And she's not allowed to be
And she's not supposed to be there. So she gets her out of the gym. And that ultimately saves Sue's life. But
the one interesting thing about that is, so Sue is standing at the edge of the stage in the back. And she is noticing the rope rattling. If Homegirl would have just grabbed that rope and tied a little knot, and like had a little bit of slack, they would have pulled that rope and nothing would have happened.
Exactly. If they had just let that happen, none of this would have happened.
No. But she literally is slow motion walking all the way around the stage and like slowly like watching, and the teacher's watching her because she's like, what is this girl doing here in some ugly jeans and a shirt at a prom?
Right.
Which, fair.
Hey, let people live.
Or why didn't she run on stage and push Carrie out of the way?
There was a lot of options that just didn't happen. Pretty upsetting.
But Sissy Spacek goes wide-eyed for the rest of the movie, and I don't like that character choice.
I love it. I think it's very effective.
No.
Okay.
I think that she could have been had a lot more demeanor. Is that the word I want? No. I don't know. Authority and power to her without being, like, bugging out.
I don't think that she was necessarily meant to have authority or power, because I don't think she does have authority over herself. No. I think she's sort of lost control, and you can see that she's in shock because there's that moment when she gets to her house where she almost goes past her house.
True.
Like, I think she's kind of fully in shock.
That scene with the car, when she turns around and she's like squatting on the ground, I'm like, what
are you doing?
She literally was like, and I was like, okay.
Well, you got to get your lower center of gravity just in case it does hit you.
You're right. I do have to talk about the music choice in this movie. The scene where Tommy and his friends are all going to buy suits. Do you remember the music in that scene at all?
Yes, and also the weird 3 seconds of fast forward that they use nowhere else in the movie. That's kind of a Brian De Palma thing. He uses a lot of those tricks in movies, and but I don't understand.
Well, I can see why people thought it was a black comedy also with that specific.
Yeah.
But also, like, one thing I did notice is that there's a lot of interesting, like, things that are being used in filmmaking now. Specifically, there's a scene where the gym teacher is making all of the other girls who were torturing Carrie. She's standing there and the girls are in the back, and they do this split scene where both of them are in focus.
Yeah.
And that is prevalent in a lot of filmmaking now, but it's more, that was probably more technical to do back then, where now I think you put on a lens that has a crack and it can diffuse it so that it has both areas in focus.
Interesting.
Whereas that, they probably had to film both of them twice and cut the film together to have it be seamless enough.
Filmmaking at that time, what a labor of love.
Really. Because now you can make a whole movie on your phone and your computer.
Yeah. I mean, there's TikToks that are high production.
Yeah.
And that's just people in their houses.
And so to think, like, for them cutting the film and, like, the scene where they're dancing and it's spinning around them, I was reading that they had them on a pedestal with them spinning one way and the camera spinning around the other way. So it creates this, like, vertigo dizzy effect.
Right.
And so I think that a lot of, like, the, like, technical aspects of filmmaking in this movie are really good. But the music and the sound effects, what a choice that was made. Let me play the music in that scene for you.
I'm kind of into it. Genuinely sounds like something I would listen to, like, on a drive to the lake. Just
why?
Have a nice time by myself. Nice little 70s moment. It's
like,
the synth. Like, what was with the synth in this? Just if you took the synth out, it wouldn't be quite so bad.
But that was really big in the 80s specifically. It was like synth and horror. The sound effects in this movie in general, I think if they were removed and replaced with something else, would make this movie a lot more effective also.
Speaking of music, I had pretty recently watched Psycho, so when I was watching this, I noticed some of the music was the theme from Psycho. And as it turns out, the composer from Psycho had planned to write the score for Carrie, but he died before they finished filming. So as a solution and a tribute, Brian De Palma used those 4-note violin for moments in Carrie. And I thought that was really interesting because he kind of did a lot of his work reflects tributes to Alfred Hitchcock. For instance, the high school in Carrie is Bates High. He was drawing comparisons between the mother relationship.
Right,
from
which
Psycho
makes sense.
Yeah.
What is your favorite scene, Kennedy Catherine?
The next climax, which is Margaret trying to kill Carrie. I find Margaret a fascinating character because when I was watching this time, I forgot the detail at the end that Carrie is the product of rape because even sex within marriage, I guess, is a sin
wrong.
in the religion that they follow. So though Margaret was married to Carrie's father, they were not sleeping together. But before I remembered that, the whole time I was watching, I was like, God, this woman is clearly the product of some sort of abuse. Like, this woman is not okay. I don't feel like you get enough of her backstory. And maybe you do in the book, but the movie doesn't focus a ton on Margaret. Like, I would say there's just a handful of scenes with her, and she's so unforgiving. She is so awful. The only point that I think she even shows like an ounce of care for Carrie is when she says they're all going to laugh at you. Because it seems to be the only time that she's actually thinking about
like the repercussions of her daughter's actions if she goes out, like to protect her.
Yes, like it's the only time that you're like, okay, she actually cares about what happens to Carrie. And I think it's interesting that Piper Laurie thought she was in a comedy. When you know that, you realize that she's doing like a very large camp sort of version of this in that scene. But when you watch it, it's horrifying.
Especially when she peers from behind the door after Carrie gets out of the bath. I was like, I would fully shit myself. She's just like hovering behind Carrie. Not physically, but like...
Yeah, she's a terrifying woman.
Yeah. In that scene when Carrie falls down the stairs because her mother pushes her, how did she not catch a blaze from a single candle that's lined on those stairs?
And why did she put candles on a bed? What kind of reckless behavior?
Why did she put candles everywhere?
Yeah, this is a genuine hazard.
They were lined up the corners of the stairwell. There was 2 candlesticks that were in the center of the bed.
Do you think she was planning to kill herself as well?
Potentially. Or maybe what she was thinking was, there was a house fire. I got out. Carrie did not. Was probably the intention. Because if you have that much fire and flames ablaze in your house already and are not expecting it to go out in some form that is an emergency, what are you doing?
I don't fully trust this woman's logical reasoning.
No, like I put on 1 candle in the house. I'm like, that is too much.
Yeah, I loved that scene. I find that relationship in those 2 people so fascinating. Yeah, I don't have like a ton to say about that scene in and of itself, but I also find the character of Miss Collins to be very interesting because I feel like Carrie has these 2 sort of mother figures, but neither one of them, it can really provide her all that much. Like, what hope did she have? None. It's so sad.
You know, well, she has no friends. She has a mother, but doesn't. Barely a guidance counselor / gym teacher who has any, like, care.
Do you know what's kind of funny about this gym teacher? I think she's misguided, but I also am not trying to apply a moral standard of 2021 to this 1976 film. So she slaps Carrie in the scene where Carrie gets her period, which I think was a pretty accepted form of breaking someone out of hysteria at the time. She also slaps another student, which honestly I kind of loved because she was a bitch. But she also takes on some sort of, like, her way of sort of nurturing Carrie seems to be rather than like, hey, like, I love and accept you where you're at. It's like, here are some changes that you can make, Carrie. And I don't think she's wrong.
Now.
I don't think she's wrong to suggest that. I think she's just like trying to give this girl a fighting chance. But I had a couple moments where I was like, I am in love with this woman. And I found it interesting that in an interview, she said, like, that intentionally, but obviously not within the story, that she played Miss Collins as a lesbian.
Good for her.
Good for her. Another interesting fact about this woman, Miss Collins is an interpretation of a character named Rita from Carrie, the novel, so I'm not too sure exactly what the differences are. The woman who played her, it was her first film role, and she's actually mostly a theater actress. And when they adapted Carrie into a musical on Broadway, the woman who plays Miss Collins in the film was the first person to play Margaret White, the mother, on Broadway.
Wow.
Which is a real full circle moment.
I tried listening to some of the soundtrack today.
Not good?
No. It's not for me.
Not it? Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention. I don't know if you caught this, but when Carrie is getting ready for the prom, Margaret walks in and says, "Red. I might have known it would be red." But Carrie's dress is kind of like a light pink. And so I was like, wait, what? But apparently that was a continuity thing where she was supposed to be wearing a red dress, and then the costume department was like, no, and they ended up changing the color of it, but no one went back into the script and changed the dialogue. And so when they finally got around to shooting that scene, they wanted to change the line, and she was like, no, in Margaret's head, she's wearing a red dress, which I thought was interesting because red is sort of the color of sin.
Right, but then they could have just put on like red lipstick instead of like a nude color.
Well, that's kind of what I thought was happening, but then Carrie turns around and I was like, she's not wearing red.
Also, what does she call her breasts?
Oh, dirty pillows.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're breasts, Mom. Every woman has them. And I was like, go off, Carrie. I love that we always go, fun fact.
Yeah.
Because I have another one.
Oh,
I have
tell me.
2. Mm-hmm. One is in relation to my favorite scene.
Okay.
So The prom scene took 2 weeks to film and 35 takes.
That's insane.
35 takes seems like a lot, but I feel like for a scene like that, it's going to take quite a bit. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that they use corn syrup.
Yes, and food coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the 2013 version, it was all CGI.
All the blood was CGI?
I think the blood pouring down, majority of it was.
Oh, interesting.
And then they just like placed it on her after. But we have the character got hurt.
Oh, I know this, the eardrum.
Yeah,
Tell me all about it.
The character got hurt in the movie and has suffered repercussions, but this one's healed.
But it is in the movie.
Yes. We need like a catchy...
We need a theme song for "And They Got Hurt."
Bing.
Can you tell the actual story of what happened?
So the character of Norma, who in the movie always is sporting a red hat.
Always. And at one point, like in the very beginning, she's wearing a bunch of rainbow stuff and there's like a rainbow pin. And for 1 second, I was like, oh, lesbian. A gay icon. And then I was like, oh, never mind. It's 1976.
She just loves rainbows. The character of Norma, who is played by PJ Souls, she is one who wears a red hat and dies via the fire hose, which was so hysterical watching that. Truly. Watching the spray water everywhere. So while filming the scene, PJ became very severely injured with the intense water pressure from the hose that ended up popping her eardrums. And so when she falls to the floor in pain, it's 100% her pain and the reaction that has come from it. And De Palma was like, we should keep it in the film, which, of course, like, let's show people in pain on film. Mm-hmm. But,
I mean, kind of at that point, like, I felt really awful about it in The Exorcist with Ellen Burstyn because she was so hurt.
Yeah.
And something about that is, like, I don't know, it's so awful. And that movie is so dark and terrible. In this instance, that was such a who could have known kind of thing. In The Exorcist, it felt like there were so many things. These people were reckless or careless.
No, yeah.
In Carrie, it's like, what else are they going to do? Get her to do the scene again? She couldn't stand up. Her center of gravity or her balance was off.
Yeah, because she ended up damaging one of her eardrums and she couldn't hear out of it for 6 months. But then after that, it eventually healed itself and she was able to make a 100% recovery. So. Thank God. So that was a happy ending on who got hurt this week.
Yeah.
Ba-dum-bum.
All in all, I feel like we haven't spoken a lot about the overall way that we feel about this movie. And I think that it's one of those movies that I love, but it's not something that I want to revisit often because it's not a thrilling watch every time.
No. Like I said, I think the story of it, I really like and not resonate with necessarily, but have some
attachment.
Yeah, I do love the story a lot, but watching it, I'm
wrap it up.
Yeah. So I do think that personally I'm going to go. I did when I was at the bookstore the other day. I looked at it and I was like, should I buy it? It's only $10.
I think I'm going to get it too. And I'm definitely going to watch the Patricia Clarkson version.
And then you have to watch the...
I've seen the Chloe Grace Moretz one. I just need to rewatch it.
But yeah, I agree where it's not something that I would necessarily like to pick up once every a couple of months.
Yeah.
I think the last time I watched the original was before going in to see the 2013 version.
Should we rate it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Scary.
1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not scary.
No, it's not. It's not frightening, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be. Unsettling.
4. I think there's real world unsettling aspects to it, which maybe makes it a 4 or 5, but the whole plot itself
is not unsettling.
No.
I will say that this last go around, when I just watched it, I was struck by how fucking sad it makes me feel. But it's I can't stand watching something where everyone is so unforgiving with an innocent person.
Who's done nothing.
She's done nothing.
She literally had her period, was not taught by her mother because her mother probably does not believe that is something...
Her mom thinks it's a product of sin.
Yes.
Yes.
So she has no education on what is happening to her or her body.
Yeah.
For her to go into hysteria and the girls just mock her, yes, that'll happen. But also at the same time, the gym teacher should have, I think, taken better control of that situation. Well, she did a great job.
She did an okay job once she was in there.
Yeah.
But she also said to the principal, You know, I felt the way they did, which is not great.
No.
Do you think that Sue survived because she is the only person who showed Carrie any mercy? Because that's what I think.
Yeah. But I also think Tommy...
He did, but we are never clear on Tommy's motivations.
Yeah, that's true.
Like why he brought Carrie, besides his girlfriend asking him, is sort of like an ambiguous thing. I'm sure he was prodded sort of into it.
Yeah, but by the time he gets to the prom with her, he's like, I'm having a really good time tonight.
And he's super nice to her. And he's a good guy. And he's beautiful. Yeah, so I would say about a 3. Story.
6. Mm-hmm. That's where I feel I stand on that matter. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah, I would agree. I would like to read the novel. Mm-hmm. I think that there was some criticism I was listening to something, and I think there was some criticism around lack of depth with the characters. But I don't think that there was like any more or less that could have been done in that amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that they could have. I felt like there wasn't a lot of one-on-one conversations between Carrie. Well, not because nobody wanted to have conversations with Carrie, for one. If there was a conversation between, like, her and Sue and, like, how Carrie is feeling and what's going on, because nobody knows what her relationship is at home with her mother. If we could have had this building of a friend where it doesn't seem malicious, that could have been really interesting. And then to have her friend save her and her save her friend in the end. So
basically change the story.
Yes.
if the story wasn't what it was, it could have
But I'm just saying, like, if there was more character development to have less stale characters.
Is it a paper cut or is it a bloody massacre? It is this wound on my heel that will not heal, is what it is. It's itchy, it's annoying, it keeps reopening, but also I'm going to live. It's fine. I'm just annoyed.
Mine's one too many perms.
If you would like, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter @Podcassacre. You can email us at theblooddypodcassacre@gmail.com. Leave a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. It means a lot. You can also follow us, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Until next time.
If you've got a taste for terror, take Carrie to the prom.